Tonight, something is changing inside you. Not your life, not your situation. You, for a long time, you stayed quiet. You watched people misunderstand you. You let things go that others would fight for. You walked away without explaining yourself, and they thought you were weak. But what they didn't see was what was happening in silence. Because in Buddhist wisdom, the loudest transformation happens quietly. And tonight, you will finally understand why your silence was never a weakness. It was power. 1. Silence was your training. Most people don't understand what silence really does to a person. They think silence is empty. They think it means nothing is happening. They think if someone is quiet, they are weak, lost, or unsure. But that is only what it looks like from the outside. Because real silence is not empty at all. It is where everything begins to change. You didn't choose silence because it was comfortable. You arrived there because life left you no other option. There were moments when speaking would not fix anything. Moments when explaining yourself felt useless. Moments when you realized that even if you spoke, you would not be understood. So you became quiet. At first, it was uncomfortable. Your mind became louder than ever. Thoughts you had been avoiding suddenly stood in front of you. Memories, fears, regrets. All of it surfaced at once. Most people run at this point. They distract themselves. They fill their time with noise. They avoid facing what is inside them. But you didn't run. You stayed. And that is where everything started to change. Because when you remain in silence long enough, you begin to see clearly. You start noticing your own patterns. You begin to understand your reactions. You see what affects you and why it affects you. You stop living on autopilot. This is where your transformation began. Not through external advice, not through someone teaching you, but through direct awareness. Buddhist wisdom teaches that awareness is the beginning of awakening. And awareness can only grow when the mind becomes still. While others stayed distracted, you became aware. You started observing your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. You noticed how emotions come and go. You saw how nothing within you stays permanent. And slowly, you changed. You didn't react the same way anymore. Things that once overwhelmed you started losing their intensity. Situations that once controlled your emotions no longer had the same power. Not because life became easier, but because you became deeper. Silence gave you that depth. It forced you to slow down. It forced you to reflect. It forced you to face yourself without escape. And that is something most people never experience. They spend their entire lives avoiding themselves, never questioning, never observing, never truly understanding what is happening inside them. But you did, and that is why something feels different now. It may not be something you can explain easily, but you feel it. You are calmer, more aware, less reactive. You no longer rush to respond. You no longer seek constant attention. You no longer depend on others to feel stable. Because silence removed that dependency, it showed you that you can exist fully, even without noise. It showed you that you don't need validation to feel complete. It showed you that understanding yourself is more important than being understood by others. And that realization changes everything. Because once you become comfortable in silence, you become difficult to disturb. No matter what happens around you, you remain steady within. That steadiness is not accidental. It was built quietly, slowly, without anyone noticing. There was no moment where the world acknowledged your growth. No recognition, no applause. But that doesn't make it any less real. Because you feel it in the way you think, in the way you respond, in the way you carry yourself now. That is what real growth looks like. It does not announce itself. It does not seek attention. It simply becomes part of who you are. So understand this clearly. You were never just quiet. You were learning. Every moment of silence, every moment of being misunderstood, Every moment of being alone with your thoughts was shaping you, strengthening you, awakening something deeper within you. And now, you are no longer the same person. You are someone who understands silence. And once you understand silence, you begin to understand yourself. And once you understand yourself, no one else can define you anymore. 2. Pain was not punishment. There were moments in your life that felt unfair, moments that didn't make sense, moments where you gave your best and still lost, moments where you trusted and still got hurt. And deep down, you asked a question most people never say out loud. Why is this happening to me? It didn't feel like growth. It didn't feel like purpose. It felt like punishment, because pain has a way of making everything feel personal, like life is targeting you, like something is wrong with you. But Buddhist wisdom reveals something deeper. Pain is not here to punish you. It is here to wake you up. The problem is, we only understand this after the pain has already changed us. When everything is going well, we don't question anything. We stay in our habits. We stay attached to what feels good. We hold on to people, situations, identities, even when they are slowly harming us. Comfort makes us blind, but pain breaks that blindness. It interrupts your routine. It shakes your sense of control. It forces you to stop and look at what you've been avoiding. That's why pain feels so intense, because it doesn't just hurt, it reveals. It shows you where you were too attached. It shows you where you depended too much. It shows you what you believed that was never true. And that realization is not easy, because sometimes what pain reveals is not the world, it's you. It shows you your fears, your insecurities, your expectations. It shows you how much of your peace was built on things outside of you. And for a moment, that realization can feel overwhelming. But this is the turning point, because once you see clearly, you can no longer go back to living blindly. You begin to understand something powerful. The pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to break what was false. Every experience that hurt you was removing something that could not last. Illusion, attachments, expectations that reality was never meant to fulfill. And even though it didn't feel like it at the time, that removal was necessary, because you cannot build a stable life on unstable foundations. Pain clears that foundation, slowly and sometimes harshly, but effectively. Think about who you were before those difficult moments, how you reacted, what you believed, what you tolerated. And now look at who you are becoming. More aware, more careful, more grounded. You see things faster now. You understand people more clearly. You don't fall into the same patterns as easily. That didn't come from comfort. It came from pain. Buddhism teaches that suffering is the doorway to understanding, not because suffering is good, but because it forces you to see what you would otherwise ignore. And once you see clearly, you begin to change. You stop chasing what once hurt you. You stop holding on to what no longer aligns with you. You stop expecting the same outcomes from the same patterns. That is growth, and it doesn't happen without discomfort. So the pain you went through was not a mistake. It was not random. It was shaping you in ways you could not see at the time. It was teaching you boundaries. It was teaching you awareness. It was teaching you detachment. And most importantly, it was teaching you yourself. Because when everything is taken away, what remains is the truth of who you are, not your roles, not your relationships, not your image, just you. And in that moment, you either break or you awaken. You chose to awaken, even if it didn't feel like a choice at the time. So now, when you look back at your pain, don't only see what it took from you, see what it gave you: clarity, strength, understanding, and a deeper awareness that most people never reach, because they never stay long enough in their pain to learn from it. But you did, and that is why you are not the same anymore. You are not weaker. You are not broken. You are aware, and awareness is the beginning of real power. 3. You outgrew their understanding. There comes a point in your life when people stop recognizing you, not because you changed suddenly, but because you changed deeply. And deep change is invisible. From the outside, you may look the same. You still speak the same. You still live in the same world. You still interact with the same people. But inside, everything is different. And this is where confusion begins. Because the people around you, they are still responding to the version of you that no longer exists. They remember who you used to be, the one who tolerated more, the one who stayed quiet in a different way, the one who adjusted to keep peace. But that version of you is gone, and they don't see that yet. So they treat you the same. They expect the same reactions. They assume you still think the same way. And when you don't, they feel it. Something is different. Something doesn't respond the way it used to. And that makes people uncomfortable, because people don't just get used to you, they get used to how you behave. Your silence, your patience, your kindness, all of it created a pattern. And now that the pattern is changing, they don't understand it. They may think you've become distant. They may think you've changed in a negative way. They may even question your attitude. But the truth is much simpler. You didn't become distant. You became aware. You didn't change for the worse. You stopped pretending. You stopped reacting in ways that cost you your peace. And that shift is something not everyone is ready to understand. Buddhist wisdom teaches that growth often creates separation, not because you want to leave people behind, but because your awareness no longer matches theirs. You begin to see things they don't see yet. You notice patterns in behavior. You recognize emotional reactions. You understand attachment and ego in ways that weren't clear before. And once you see these things, you cannot unsee them. That changes how you interact. You don't engage in unnecessary conflict. You don't chase validation. You don't react just to maintain connection. And for people who are used to the old you, this feels unfamiliar, sometimes even threatening, because your growth removes their comfort. They can no longer predict you the same way. They can no longer rely on your old reactions. And without realizing it, they may resist your change, not because they want to hurt you, but because they don't understand what's happening. And this is where you face a quiet truth. Not everyone will grow with you. Some people will stay where they are, in the same patterns, in the same ways of thinking, in the same level of awareness. And that's okay, because growth is personal. It cannot be forced. It cannot be explained fully. It can only be experienced. So instead of trying to make people understand you, you begin to accept something deeper. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to understand yourself. That shift changes everything. You stop over-explaining. You stop seeking approval. You stop trying to fit into versions of yourself that no longer feel true. And in that space, you find clarity. Yes, it can feel lonely at times, because when you outgrow certain patterns, you also outgrow certain connections. But that loneliness is not emptiness. It is space. Space for alignment. Space for truth. Space for becoming who you really are. And over time, you will meet people who match that version of you, not because you searched for them, but because you became someone who naturally aligns with them. Until then, you don't shrink yourself to fit old expectations. You don't go back to who you were just to make others comfortable. You honor your growth, quietly, without needing recognition, because real growth does not ask for permission. It simply continues. So, if people no longer fully understand you, if they feel confused by your silence, your boundaries, your new way of being, remember this: you didn't lose them. You outgrew what they understood about you. And that is not something to fear. It is something to respect. Because becoming someone new requires letting go of who you used to be. And not everyone will recognize that version immediately, but you do, and that is enough. 4. Letting go made you powerful. There was a time when you held on to everything: people, memories, expectations. You believed that holding on meant strength, that if you just tried harder, stayed longer, gave more, things would eventually become what you hoped. But they didn't, and that truth was hard to accept, because letting go doesn't feel like strength at first. It feels like loss. It feels like giving up. It feels like something is being taken away from you. So you resisted. You replayed moments in your mind. You questioned what you could have done differently. You tried to fix what was already breaking. But the more you held on, the heavier everything became. Your thoughts became restless. Your emotions became overwhelming. Your peace slowly disappeared. And then something shifted. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly. You began to understand something deeper. Holding on was not protecting you. It was hurting you. Buddhist wisdom teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, not because connection is wrong, but because clinging creates pain. When you attach yourself to outcomes, you suffer when they don't happen. When you attach yourself to people, you suffer when they change. When you attach yourself to a version of life, you suffer when reality moves differently. And reality always moves. That is its nature. Nothing stays the same. Nothing remains fixed. Nothing belongs to you permanently. At first, this truth feels uncomfortable because it challenges everything you believed about control. But once you accept it, something inside you becomes lighter. You begin to release, not out of weakness, but out of understanding. You let go of people who no longer align with your peace. You let go of expectations that reality cannot sustain. You let go of the need to control how everything unfolds. And in that process, you don't lose yourself. You find yourself. Because when you stop holding on to everything, you create space within yourself. Space for clarity, space for calm, space for truth. And that space is powerful. It allows you to respond instead of react. It allows you to see situations as they are, not as you wish them to be. It allows you to move forward without carrying the weight of the past. This is where your power comes from, not from controlling life, but from flowing with it, not from forcing outcomes, but from understanding that everything changes. You no longer chase what is meant to leave. You no longer resist what is meant to end. You no longer hold on just because you are afraid of being alone, because you understand something most people don't. Letting go is not the end of something. It is the beginning of freedom. And freedom is powerful. It means your peace is no longer dependent on someone else's behavior. It means your happiness is no longer tied to specific outcomes. It means your identity is no longer built on things that can disappear. You become stable, not because life is stable, but because you are no longer attached to its constant changes. And that stability cannot be taken from you. People may come and go. Situations may rise and fall. Life may move in unexpected ways. But inside, you remain steady. That is real strength. So when you look back at everything you let go of, don't see it as something you lost. See it as something you released to become who you are now. Because the person you are becoming could not exist while holding on to everything that was weighing you down. You had to let go to rise. And now you understand. Your power was never in holding on. It was in knowing when to release. 5. You stopped needing validation. There was a time when you needed people to see you, to understand you, to acknowledge your effort, to recognize your worth. You wanted your presence to be felt, your voice to be heard, your value to be confirmed by someone else. And when that didn't happen, it affected you more than you realized. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you weren't enough. You adjusted your behavior just to be accepted. You gave more than you should have. You stayed longer than you needed to. You tolerated things that quietly drained you, all for one reason. You were seeking validation, and this is something almost everyone goes through. Because from a young age, we are taught to look outward for approval. We are praised when we meet expectations. We are accepted when we fit in. We are valued when others recognize us. So naturally, we begin to believe that our worth comes from outside. But life has a way of breaking that illusion. There were moments when you did everything right and still weren't appreciated. Moments when you gave your best and it went unnoticed. Moments when you expected understanding but received silence. And slowly, something inside you began to shift. Not out of anger, not out of resentment, but out of realization. You started to see that no matter how much you give, you cannot control how others perceive you. You cannot force someone to understand your intentions. You cannot make someone value what they are not ready to see. And the moment you truly accept this, you stop trying, not in a careless way, but in a peaceful way. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen. You stop adjusting your truth just to be accepted. And this is where your freedom begins. Buddhist wisdom teaches that attachment to recognition creates suffering, because the more you depend on others to validate you, the more power you give away. Your peace becomes fragile. Your confidence becomes conditional. Your identity becomes dependent. But when you release that need, everything changes. You begin to stand on your own understanding. You know who you are without needing someone to confirm it. You trust your growth without needing someone to notice it. You value your presence without needing applause. And that kind of self-awareness is rare, because most people are still chasing approval. They shape their lives around how they are perceived. They speak based on what will be accepted. They act based on what will be praised. But you no longer live like that. You speak less, but with more truth. You act less for attention and more from clarity. You move quietly, but with confidence. And that shift is powerful, because the moment you stop needing validation, you become difficult to manipulate. No one can control you through approval. No one can influence you through praise or criticism. You are no longer reacting to how people see you. You are grounded in how you see yourself. And that is stability. That is strength. It doesn't mean you stop caring completely. It doesn't mean you become disconnected from others. It simply means your sense of self is no longer dependent on them. You can connect without losing yourself. You can give without expecting recognition. You can walk away without needing closure from others, because you already have it within you. And that inner clarity is something no one can take from you. So when you look at who you were before, always seeking approval, always hoping to be understood, and compare it to who you are now, calmer, more grounded, less dependent, you begin to see the truth. You didn't lose anything. You gained yourself. And once you gain yourself, you stop needing the world to confirm your worth, because you already know it. And that is where real power begins. 6. Your energy changed first. Before anything in your life began to shift, something inside you changed. Not your situation, not the people around you, not your external world. You. It was subtle at first. A slight pause before reacting. A moment of awareness where there used to be impulse. A quiet feeling that something within you was no longer the same. You couldn't fully explain it, but you felt it, because transformation does not begin outside. It begins within. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the outer world reflects the inner state, and that means before your life changes, your energy changes. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you respond, all of it begins to shift quietly. You started noticing things that didn't feel right anymore. Conversations that once felt normal now felt draining. Situations you once tolerated now felt unnecessary. Patterns you once repeated no longer made sense. And this can feel confusing because your external life hasn't fully changed yet, but internally, you are no longer aligned with it. It feels like you're between two versions of yourself. The old one that still exists in your environment, and the new one that is forming within you. This space can feel uncomfortable because you haven't fully stepped into your new life yet, but you can no longer go back to your old one. And that tension is part of the process. Because energy shifts before reality does, you began to feel calmer, not because everything around you became peaceful, but because you stopped feeding chaos with your reactions. You became less reactive. Things that once triggered you instantly now pass through you more easily. You observe more. You react less. And that alone changes everything. Because most people live in reaction. They respond based on emotion. They act based on impulse. They get pulled into situations without awareness. But you stepped out of that pattern. You created space between what happens and how you respond to it. And in that space, you found control. Not control over others, not control over life, but control over yourself. And that is the highest form of control. Your energy became steady, not perfect, not always calm, but more stable than before. You don't get pulled in every direction anymore. You don't absorb everything around you the same way. You choose what affects you, and that choice changes your entire experience of life. People may not notice it immediately, because it's not loud, it's not dramatic, but they feel it. They feel the difference in how you respond. They feel the calmness in your presence. They feel that you are no longer easily influenced. And over time, your external world begins to reflect this shift. You attract different situations, different conversations, different people, not because you forced it, but because your energy no longer matches what it used to. This is why some things fall away during growth, not as a loss, but as a natural result of change. You don't chase what no longer aligns. You don't hold on to what feels heavy. You don't try to fix everything around you. You simply shift within and let life reorganize itself around you. This is something most people don't understand. They try to change their life from the outside. They try to control outcomes, force situations, manage every detail. But real change doesn't work like that. It begins with you, with your awareness, with your mindset, with your energy. And once that shifts, everything else follows. So if you've been feeling different lately, calmer, more aware, less reactive, but your life hasn't fully caught up yet, understand this. You are not stuck. You are in transition. Your energy has already changed. Your reality is simply catching up, and when it does, you will realize something powerful. The change you were waiting for was never outside of you. It began within you all along. 7. You learn to observe, not react. There was a time when everything around you had power over you, not because you were weak, but because you were unaware. A single word could change your mood. A small situation could ruin your entire day. Someone's behavior could pull you into emotions you didn't choose. And in those moments, you didn't pause. You reacted instantly, without space, without awareness, without understanding what was really happening inside you. And this is how most people live. They believe their reactions are natural. They believe their emotions are automatic. They believe they have no control over what they feel or how they respond. But slowly, something in you began to shift. It didn't happen all at once. It started with small moments. Moments where you didn't react immediately. Moments where you noticed your thoughts instead of becoming them. Moments where you felt an emotion, but didn't let it control your actions. At first, it felt unfamiliar, almost unnatural, because your mind was used to reacting. It was trained to respond instantly, to defend, to argue, to prove, to protect. But now, you were doing something different. You were watching, and that changed everything. Because the moment you begin to observe, you create space. Space between what happens and how you respond to it. And in that space, your power begins. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering is not caused by what happens, but by how the mind reacts to it. And when you truly understand this, you stop trying to control everything outside of you. Instead, you begin to understand what is happening inside you. You notice your thoughts, not as truth, but as activity. You begin to see how your mind creates stories, how it assumes, judges, reacts, often without real understanding. And once you see that clearly, you stop believing everything you think. That alone changes your entire experience. Because now, a thought arises, and you watch it. An emotion appears, and you feel it, but you don't become it. A situation unfolds, and instead of reacting instantly, you pause. That pause is everything. It may only last a second, but in that second, you are no longer controlled. You are aware, and awareness gives you choice. Before, your reactions were automatic. Now, your responses are intentional. And that difference is the difference between chaos and clarity. Think about it. How many times in the past did you react in a way you later regretted? Words spoken too quickly, emotions expressed too strongly, decisions made without clarity. That was reaction. It comes from impulse, from ego, from unawareness. But observation is different. It is calm. It is steady. It is conscious. It allows you to see what is actually happening, not just what it feels like in the moment. And when you see clearly, you respond differently. You don't argue just to prove a point. You don't defend yourself unnecessarily. You don't get pulled into every emotional situation. You choose your energy. You choose your response. And sometimes, you choose silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that not everything needs a reaction. This is a level of control most people never reach, because they are constantly reacting to people, to situation, to their own thoughts. They are being moved by everything around them, but you are no longer like that. You are still present. You still feel. You still experience. But you are not controlled. You observe, and through observation, you understand. You begin to see patterns in people. You notice how others react from emotion, how they project their thoughts, how they act without awareness. And instead of getting pulled into it, you step back. You see it clearly, and that clarity protects you. Because once you see patterns, you are no longer surprised by them. Once you understand behavior, you are no longer affected by it the same way. You don't take everything personally. You don't internalize everything. You recognize what belongs to you and what doesn't, and that creates peace. Not because life becomes perfect, but because your inner world becomes stable. You are no longer reacting to everything. You are choosing what deserves your attention, and that is power. Real power is not loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't need to control others. It simply remains steady, no matter what is happening outside. And this is what you are becoming. Someone who can feel without being overwhelmed. Someone who can think without being controlled by thoughts. Someone who can experience life without being lost in it. This is awareness. This is mastery. So when you notice yourself pausing, when you notice yourself observing instead of reacting, when you notice that things don't affect you the same way anymore, understand what is happening. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming conscious. And once you become conscious, you can never go back to living unconsciously, because now you see. And once you see clearly, you respond differently. You live differently. You exist differently. And in that difference, you find something most people are still searching for: peace. 8. You became comfortable alone. There was a time when being alone didn't feel peaceful. It felt heavy. It felt like something was missing, like silence around you meant emptiness inside you. You needed distraction. You needed conversation. You needed someone there, even if it wasn't the right person, because being alone forced you to feel everything, and feeling everything was not easy. So you stayed connected, even when it drained you, even when it didn't feel right, even when you had to lose parts of yourself just to keep the connection, not because you didn't know better, but because you weren't ready to face yourself fully. Most people aren't. They avoid solitude. They fill their time with noise, with people, with constant stimulation, because being alone reveals too much. It shows them their thoughts, their insecurities, their fears. It shows them the parts of themselves they've been avoiding, and that's uncomfortable. But life has a way of bringing you to that space anyway, maybe through distance, maybe through loss, maybe through situations that slowly remove distractions from your life, and suddenly, you are alone. At first, it feels unfamiliar. The silence becomes louder than ever. Your thoughts become clearer. Everything you once ignored begins to surface. And in that moment, you have two choices: run back to distraction, or stay. You stayed, not because it was easy, but because something inside you knew it was necessary. And that decision changed you, because the more time you spent alone, the more you began to understand something powerful. Alone does not mean empty. It means undistracted. For the first time, you were not reacting to others. You were not adjusting yourself to fit someone else's expectations. You were not shaping your behavior to maintain connection. You were just you. And at first, that can feel uncertain, because when you remove everything external, you are left with yourself, your thoughts, your patterns, your emotions. But slowly, that discomfort turns into clarity. You begin to understand what you actually feel, not what you think you should feel. You begin to recognize what truly matters to you, not what you were taught to value. You begin to see yourself clearly, without influence. And that clarity is rare, because most people never sit with themselves long enough to reach it. They keep moving, keep connecting, keep distracting, but you didn't. You stayed long enough to transform. You started enjoying your own presence. Silence no longer felt uncomfortable. It felt calm. Being alone no longer felt like loss. It felt like space. You no longer needed constant interaction to feel stable. You no longer depended on others to regulate your emotions. You found stability within yourself, and that changes everything. Because when you are comfortable alone, you are no longer controlled by attachment. You don't stay in situations just to avoid loneliness. You don't tolerate behavior that disturbs your peace. You don't chase connections that don't align with who you are, because you understand something deeply. Peace is better than presence. Not every connection adds value. Not every relationship brings growth. And once you realize that, you become selective, not out of ego, but out of awareness. You choose your environment carefully. You choose your interactions intentionally. You choose where your energy goes. And that level of awareness protects you, because now you are not afraid of being alone. And when you are not afraid of being alone, you cannot be manipulated by the fear of losing others. You don't stay where you are not respected. You don't remain where you are not understood. You don't hold on just because you are afraid of emptiness, because you already know you are not empty. You are whole. That realization is powerful. It means your happiness is no longer dependent. Your peace is no longer conditional. Your identity is no longer shaped by who is around you. You carry your stability within you, and because of that, you move differently. You speak less, but with intention. You connect less, but with depth. You choose less, but with clarity. And when you do connect with others, it comes from a place of wholeness, not need. You are not looking for someone to complete you. You are not searching for someone to fill a gap. You are already complete. And from that place, your connections become healthier, more real, more aligned, because you are not attaching. You are choosing. This is the difference. Most people connect out of need, out of fear, out of emptiness. But you connect from awareness, and that creates a different kind of life. A life where your peace is not easily disturbed. A life where your presence is not easily influenced. A life where your happiness is not easily taken away, because it does not come from outside. It comes from within. So if you have reached a point where you enjoy your own company, where silence feels comfortable, where being alone feels peaceful, understand what that means. You are no longer dependent. You are no longer searching. You are no longer avoiding yourself. You have met yourself, and you are no longer afraid of what you found. And that is something most people are still running from. So what once felt like loneliness has now become strength. What once felt like emptiness has now become clarity. What once felt like silence has now become peace. And now, you don't need the world to feel complete, because you already are. 9. Tonight, you rise without noise. There is a moment in every transformation that no one sees. No announcement, no recognition, no dramatic turning point that the world can point to and say, that's when everything changed. But inside, everything has already changed. This is that moment. Not loud, not visible, not something you can prove to anyone, but real. For a long time, you were becoming someone new in silence. You were letting go of what no longer aligned. You were facing parts of yourself that were uncomfortable. You were changing your thoughts, your reactions, your patterns, slowly, quietly, and no one noticed. Because real growth is not performance. It doesn't seek attention. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't happen in front of an audience. It happens within. And because it happens within, people often misunderstand it. They expect transformation to be obvious. They expect confidence to be loud. They expect power to be visible. But true power does not need to be seen to exist. It is felt, and that is what is happening now. You are not becoming someone who needs to prove anything. You are becoming someone who simply is. Your presence is different. Your energy is steady. Your awareness is deeper. And even if people cannot explain it, they feel it. They notice that you don't react the same way. They notice that you don't chase the same things. They notice that you don't respond to situations the way you used to. There is a calmness in you now, a quiet strength. And that kind of strength is rare, because it is not built on control. It is built on understanding. You understand that not everything needs your attention. You understand that not every situation deserves your energy. You understand that your peace is more valuable than temporary reactions. And because of that, you move differently. You don't rush to explain yourself. You don't feel the need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't get pulled into every conflict. You choose silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know when speaking is unnecessary. This is where your power becomes undeniable, not because you demand attention, but because you no longer need it. There is something about a person who is grounded within themselves that cannot be ignored, not because they are trying to stand out, but because they are not trying at all. And that authenticity is what people feel. They may not understand it, they may not be able to describe it, but they sense the shift, because when someone becomes truly aware, their presence changes. It becomes steady, it becomes calm, it becomes difficult to disturb, and that steadiness influences everything around it. Situations that once created chaos now lose their intensity. People who once affected your emotions no longer have the same control. You are still present, but you are not absorbed. You are still aware, but you are not overwhelmed. And that difference is everything. Because most people are constantly pulled by life. They react, they chase, They resist. They struggle. But you have stepped into a different way of being. You are not resisting life. You are not chasing every outcome. You are not holding on to what is meant to pass. You are simply aware, and in that awareness, you find balance. This is what it means to rise without noise. It is not about becoming louder. It is not about proving your worth. It is not about showing the world who you are. It is about becoming so aligned within yourself that nothing outside can shake you. It is about reaching a point where your peace is not easily disturbed, where your identity is not easily influenced, where your direction is not easily changed by external pressure. And once you reach that point, everything becomes clearer. You stop questioning yourself constantly. You stop seeking approval for your choices. You stop doubting your growth, because you know, not through words, not through external confirmation, but through direct experience, you feel the difference. And that feeling is your truth. So tonight, you don't need to do anything dramatic. You don't need to announce your transformation. You don't need to prove your growth to anyone, because the real shift has already happened. You are no longer who you used to be. And you didn't become this version of yourself through noise. You became it through silence, through awareness, through understanding. So now, you rise, not above others, not for recognition, but into yourself, into a version of you that is steady, clear, aware, a version of you that does not need the world to change, to feel at peace, because your peace no longer comes from the outside, it comes from within. And once your peace comes from within, nothing outside can take it away. That is your power. That is your transformation. And that is why you no longer need to be loud to be seen, because what you have become cannot be ignored. So if you've been quiet, if you've been stepping back, letting go, changing in ways no one sees, understand this clearly. You are not falling behind. You are awakening. Everything you went through, the silence, the pain, the distance, it wasn't breaking you. It was building you. And now, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain yourself, because the version of you that needed validation no longer exists. So stay silent, stay aware, stay grounded, because the strongest people in this world are not the loudest. They are the ones who transformed without anyone noticing. And when they finally rise, they don't need attention. Their presence is enough.